Recording in progress. Good evening, everyone. I will call this meeting to order, tonight's regular City Council meeting for September 2nd, 2025. Welcome, everyone. And at this time, I'd like everyone to please stand and join me as we do our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Okay. Councilmember Brando Cruz.
Here.
Councilmember Melissa Lamatina.
Here.
Councilmember David Oro.
Here.
Vice Mayor Mark Joseph.
Here.
Mayor Pierre Washington.
I'm here. We'll report on closed session confirmation or reportable actions. Ms. Hyde-Smith.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The council met in closed session late afternoon to review a matter of anticipated litigation. Direction was provided to legal counsel and staff, but no action was taken. And that's the end of my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hyde-Smith. Moving to proclamations and presentations for this evening. We have one proclamation and one presentation. We will start with item number 2, the proclamation for Hispanic Heritage Month. Do we have a recipient for Hispanic Heritage Month?
We do. We have former Mayor Leon Garcia to receive this evening.
Mayor Leon Garcia, welcome. I'll read the proclamation and then I'll give you an opportunity to say a few words.
Okay.
Key word, Leon, a few words.
Only a few?
Okay. Hispanic Heritage Month, whereas National Hispanic Heritage Month is known to celebrate nationwide for September 15th through October 15th of each year. The observation started in 1968 as Hispanic Week and has expanded by United States President Ronald Reagan in 1988 to cover the month at which it is celebrated today. Understanding that the September 15th is significant because it's an anniversary of independence of Latin America countries like Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and in addition, Mexico and Chile celebrate their independent days on September 16th and the 18th, respectively. And whereas the City of American Canyon looks forward to celebrating Hispanic Month, highlighting its rich heritage, arts, history, food, music, and traditions of all 26 plus Latin American nations. While recognizing that these nations are not monogamous,
Monogamous?
There you go. Thank you. And this month celebrates, honors, and pays tribute to all of their contributions to our city and our community. And whereas the City of American Canyon has a long history of welcoming immigrants and is home to growing multi-ethnic and multicultural Latino population, all of whom are welcome and very much appreciated. And whereas the diverse Latino population of American Canyon makes a significant economic contribution and has other profound positive influences on our community through their strong commitment to family, faith, education, hard work, culture, and service. And whereas the community strives on the diversity of all people and depends on the continued support and success of our diverse Latino population, and will continue to be enriched by the transculture contributions of our Latino friends and neighbors for many years and decades to come. Now, therefore, I, Pierre Washington, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2025 as Hispanic Heritage Month in American Canyon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really appreciate that. It's my time to comment. I would say it's enormously heartfelt. there's so much negativity regarding immigrants out there in the media. But I think the thing we counter that with is celebrate the contributions of the immigrant community. We look at American Canyon here. You know, I've quoted often, and it's there's 38 different languages spoken in this city. That's the people who came here to this country. I'm standing next to one. There's people on the city council who are immigrants who came to this country. So our contributions are very significant. And it's a bonding that we all share many things in common, regardless of how far we are in terms of language or distance. But I also point out significant impact on the Philippines, Spanish colony for I don't know how many hundred years. A lot of the national dialect language has a lot of Spanish words in it, so we can see the influence. So it's a positive contribution. I would urge all of us to. I would like to see more like that. You know, you come here with this is a wine country here, the Mexican American Vintners Association. Last time I checked, there were 16 of them. Most of them came as farm workers. They're working in the fields, and their aspirations and their sticking to their vision, what they want to accomplish. They moved from that all the way up through the wine industry. They know it from the ground up, and they are very successful as well. So it's time to share that. You mentioned that some of the cities, countries in Latin America. In this city alone, we go north of here, it's probably 3 states in Mexico. That's Napa up to Calistoga. I did a sister city years ago with a place called Jerez, Zacatecas. There's a lot of Zacatecanos who live here. There is Jalisco. That's where tequila comes from, right? And Michoacan. In just a few blocks from our house, we have Puerto Ricans live across the street. There's a woman from Honduras. There's a man from Panama. There's people from Guatemala we connect with. At dinner the other evening, a lady was from the Dominican Republic. And that just begins to top the surface of what's the diversity of the Hispanic community in American Canyon. So I really appreciate the proclamation this evening. I wish my cohorts from Napa County Hispanic Network, I was a founding board member back in the early 1980s, but we'll make sure that they get the proclamation.
Thank you, Leon, and we'll take a picture with you. I'm sure you kind of still remember how to do that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Take some pictures.
Yes. I know the drill.
Next, we have a presentation by, for item number 3 by the Audubon Society. Do we have a representative? And this is our presentation.
No, I'm just going to introduce, good morning, afternoon, evening. I'm just going to introduce Mr. Mark Stevenson. He's the president of the Napa Solano Audubon Society, and he's an environmental educator and an expert on wildlife in American Canyon. And we also have a student intern from the Sierra Club who will be presenting at the end of his speech a little bit about seawater rise along the estuary. Thank you.
And for those who don't know who you are?
I know, I'm so self-centered. Yvonne Baginski, thank you.
Welcome, Yvonne.
Everyone knows Yvonne, right? Well, I don't know if you know me, but I was a teacher in Benicia Unified for 12 years and then an administrator up in Napa Valley for over 20 years, and have lived in this part of the Bay Area for almost 50 years. I bet you didn't think I was that old. Yeah. So I'm here today to talk to you about the jewel that you have in the midst of your city, American Canyon Wetlands. It is one of the truly remarkable birding locations in the entire Bay Area, if not all of California. I hopefully know how to advance. Here we go. Every year, thousands of visitors come to walk the Bay Trail that leads all the way to Green Island. And hundreds, we take hundreds, literally hundreds of school children there every single year. And we try to teach the importance of this incredible ecosystem that you have. You have the bay coming in, you have marshlands, and the next layer is grasslands, and then you have forests. And this rare, within 300 or 400 yards of each other, this rare system of having that many ecosystems or habitats just sandwiched in makes it one of the best birding areas in all of California. In fact, even in the winter, it is easy to see more than 100 species in American Canyon Wetlands. So why is this area so important? It's unique because of its ecological habitat. I love this photo that someone took that I think is on the American Canyon Foundation's website, but it shows the bay encroaching on the marsh, encroaching on the pickleweed and the grassland, and then the forest. These ecotones are crucial for wildlife. It's habitat which is essential for the survival of so many different bird species. The marsh is a haven for overwintering ducks, egrets, herons, and an essential stopover for shorebirds. The grassland is essential foraging area for seed-eating sparrows, finches, and most raptors that live in our area. They depend on that zone. Let me see how this works. Let's see. Okay. How do I scroll? Oh, scroll. Here we go. I got it. You'd think as an educator I could use this, but oops, let's go back. There we go. I don't know if I'm going to make this mouse work. So they depend on this zone for their food. So here we have a portion of the bay that is really a haven for overwintering ducks. Here we have a cinnamon teal that's actually a resident, but it's joined by many other species during the winter. It's a crucial stopover and actually wintering place for more than 20 species of ducks. Another species that's really common in the wetlands, the green-winged teal, comes in November and leaves in about May. And they are specially adapted for moving up into the mud flats, gathering up mud in their bills, and using their tongue to squish out the mud and to save all the nutrients. This bird is probably the most common bird out there, the northern shoveler. Its bill is specially adapted for doing the same things. I'm hoping that this presentation will educate you a little bit on how rich the wetlands is and why it's so important to protect it. Herons of all kinds, like this snowy egret, come here to feed on small fish and minnows. This is a picture of some of the thousands of migrating shorebirds that stop over here right near Green Island. Literally, there are probably 10 different species of shorebirds that they depend on this area for their survival. Many stay actually for several weeks, and some, like this American avocet, actually winter here the entire winter. There's flocks of over 1,000 avocets out in the wetlands in the Green Island area. Another bird that overwinters here is the marbled godwit. There's a flock of over 3,000 godwits in the wetlands. This is a picture that shows how those shorebirds roost in the grasslands and the pickleweed and actually feed in that area as well. So the grassland is really an essential part of the richness of the bay. There's little tiny peeps like this one that come in by the tens of thousands that use this area so that they can continue on their way to Chile. There's marsh residents like this little tiny yellow-throat warbler that's in the marsh year-round. There's little rails like this Sora rail that are here year-round, and this Virginia rail that are also here year-round. But probably you haven't seen this rail. This is a black rail. It's an endangered species, and they breed from American Canyon all the way up to Green Island within 200 yards of the forest. The actual nutrients that come out of the forest and the grassland that feed the marshland are critical for this bird's survival. Another endangered species that you may have heard of is the Ridgway's rail. They live in brackish waters. Their numbers are really declining, but in Green Island area, Milton Road, and parts of American Canyon wetlands, they exist in small corners of the marsh. Of course, you know the river otter. There's many mammals that live there too. So I'm here to speak about two different issues. The first was there was a proposal to clear cut all the eucalyptus trees bordering the wetlands. This would be a devastating event for the habitat that these birds depend on. The reason is that clear cutting completely demolishes the habitat that half of those bird species depend on. So if there is a need to thin for fire protection, I beseech you to use what's called, what's the word? I'm searching for the word. Selective harvesting, selective cutting. Cutting a few trees at a time, replanting with native plants, native trees that can tolerate the water that's encroaching on that area. Trees like red alder and white alder, trees like willow that can survive in the wet conditions that the eucalyptus are struggling to survive. As the seas rise, that whole area is getting inundated with water. We have to plant the species that can survive there and that are native to our area, but we have to do it slowly with time. Otherwise, we'll demolish that habitat. There's many reasons. Some are up here. I'll let you read it. But basically, selective cutting promotes the diversity of both plants and animals. Over the last decade or two, our Earth has lost 4 billion birds. That's just an inconceivable number. The grassland-dependent species are actually one of the hardest impacted. The sparrows, the finches, the swallows and thrushes that feed on the insects over the grassland, they are in decline. The grassland in American Canyon wetlands provides that magical ecotone, that area between habitats where species thrive. So that grassland is essential. I've heard that there's development proposed in the vineyards north of American Canyon wetlands, south of Green Island. That area is critical for so many of these species that I'm talking about. I also have heard that there's more proposed warehouse development. And I've heard that you have an 18% vacancy in the current existing warehouses, so why build more? Why take up this valuable ecosystem that so many creatures depend on? So these are some of the birds I'm going to introduce you to really rapidly, but I need to give you a sense of the diversity that American Canyon Wetlands supports. So here's our map again. You can see the marsh, you can see the grass, you can see the forest. It's all within about 300 yards. So the first is the Swainson's hawk. They're an endangered species here in California. They depend on eucalyptus to nest. They depend on the grasslands to feed. They're here all summer long, from the spring till the fall. Here's a dark morph of the same bird. Here's the light morph, here's the dark morph. Beautiful, beautiful hawks. You may not be familiar with this bird, but this is a white-tailed kite. We actually have found them nesting in the wetlands in north towards Green Island. This is a close-up of the kite. To get the power of this presentation, Do you have screens in front of you, or?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
This screen is like, I can't believe how beautiful this bird is. I actually live up in Napa, and I have one nesting in the park right next door to my house, and it's a miracle because their numbers are declining so rapidly. This is a red-shouldered hawk. It's pretty common. It's here in the wetlands in American Canyon. You all know the red-tailed hawk, very common, soaring around. But you may not know the Cooper's hawk, which actually is a woodland hawk, lives in the forest, and it feeds on birds. Ooh, I'm sorry to say that. It actually eats and kills little birds. But it has to survive too. This is a bird that is one of my favorite birds. It's called a northern harrier. When I was growing up in the 60s, this bird was called a marsh hawk. It's called a marsh hawk because it soars over the marsh, low over the marsh, and finds meadow voles on the edge of the marsh and the grassland where they feed. It typically nests in coyote bush that is in the grasslands adjacent to the marsh. This is a northern harrier male, so the female is really brown, the male's really gray. They call it the gray ghost. Now, this picture will surprise many of you. Guess where this was taken? Green Island. We have 2 or 3 pairs of nesting bald eagles that come down and feed on fish, they feed on rabbits, and they feed on anything, shorebirds sometimes, that they can gain in the marshland. Another bird came over next. This came so close I almost couldn't focus on it. A male bald eagle, mature. Another little bird is a falcon. This is the American kestrel. We used to call it a sparrowhawk because we thought it fed on sparrows, but actually it feeds on grasshoppers and insects. And it is seriously in decline because of the use of pesticides. Just like the DDT area, we now have a series of pesticides that are getting into the food chain and really nailing the organisms near the top. This is a peregrine falcon, the fastest bird in the world. It can dive at speeds of over 200 miles an hour. They come all through the wetlands, feeding on shorebirds that are there overwintering. So the avocets have to beware. But if you've noticed the shorebirds, they fly in a massive flock, and it confuses the peregrine. So maybe only the straggling bird will be caught. This great horned owl nest was in the wetlands 2 years ago, and it hatched 2 baby owlets. A barn owl, maybe you're familiar with, they also feed over the grasslands. Vineyards love them because in a given season, a pair of barn owls can eat 2,000 voles. It's amazing, just a pair eat 2,000 voles, and the voles tend to eat the roots of the grapes. So the vineyard people are put up barn owl boxes throughout their vineyards. Another owl that you may have seen or heard about is the burrowing owl. It's endangered. We counted 8 overwintering burrowing owls in the wetlands this past winter. Here's a little endemic bird, the Nuttall's woodpecker. They're only found in California, and they nest and breed in the wetlands in the forest. A little downy woodpecker, the same. And a red-shafted flicker, the same. This flicker was honored by the Native Americans and prized for their red tail feathers that they wove into bonnets. Little house wrens are now making a home there. They're making a home because there's enough decaying trees that they can find holes to nest in. It's a cavity nester, just like the woodpeckers. They have to have a cavity. A little white-breasted nuthatch, the same thing. They use abandoned woodpeckers' holes. Western bluebirds, believe it or not, which were almost endangered during the DDT area, have come back. They've made an amazing recovery because we stopped using DDT. Napa Solano Audubon, I'm proud to say, has over 150 bluebird nesting boxes out in American Canyon and throughout our 2 counties. And for the past 2 seasons, we've fledged over 700 western bluebirds, babies that have successfully left the nest. Here's a tree swallow. They love bluebird boxes to nest in because they're cavity nesters. I was able to catch this shot of the bluebirds chasing the tree swallow away, but that's how important those boxes are. and how important the forest is, because hundreds of the tree swallows still nest in the forest in holes that they're able to find. Of course, our motto, our emblem is the song sparrow. They breed all through the marshes, some of which are endangered species. In the winter, you get the Lincoln sparrow. White-crowned sparrows and golden-crowned sparrows come down in flocks. And the little swamp sparrow, I've only seen a couple of times at the wetlands, but because it's an eastern species, but they breed way up into Canada, and a few get confused and come down the west coast instead of heading east. So we're lucky enough to get some swamp sparrows. And finally, the fox sparrow that breeds up in the Sierras and further north. They come down in huge numbers. This picture was taken in the wetlands. And finally, a species of concern. Every time that I have walked during migration in the wetlands and up through Green Island, I've found monarch butterflies. There are very few left. It's an endangered species. It's an insect. You wouldn't think insects would be considered an endangered species, but they are. They're really gorgeous, and there's only a few thousand left. So we have to do everything we can to protect the forest. They actually feed on the eucalyptus flowers. We have to do everything we can to protect our grasslands. We have so much development in our area. It's encroaching on our natural areas, and I'm here to beseech you to preserve some of those natural areas, especially when they're ecotowns, where marshland borders on grassland, borders on forest, so sensitive and so supportive of so many different species. So next we have Kate from American Canyon High School.
Thank you for that amazing presentation, Mr. Stevenson. Good morning, or good evening, City Council members. My name is Catherine Bitt, but I also go by Kate. I've lived in American Canyon my entire life, and I'm also a class of 2026 senior at American Canyon High School. I'm also a student intern with the Napa Sierra Club and the co-president of Napa Schools for Climate Action, which is a student youth group that advocates for climate and environmental justice among the youth and within our communities. And while my presentation isn't as long as Mr. Stevenson's, I do want to emphasize and express the role the wetlands has on the American Canyon residents and our community as a whole, and the adverse effects of sea level rise. Now, my family has lived in American Canyon for the past 21 years, which is older than me, and the wetlands carry so many irreplaceable memories of ours. And everyone experiences some of their most significant, important firsts during their childhood, and these include your first steps taken, your first words said. But for me and my siblings, one of our firsts was actually experienced at the wetlands. We all learned how to ride our bikes there, and yeah, keep in mind, I have two siblings. I have an older sister, 4 years older than me, and a younger brother, 5 years younger than me. And so the wetlands have been something that has been very prevalent in all of our lives for a very long time. And this experience is so treasured and so memorable. And while many people experience their firsts during this childhood stage, like this particular memory, some of them are experienced later in life. For example, I carry this memory that's more recent of my grandma actually coming out to American Canyon and my family and I bringing her out to the wetlands for a sunset walk. And coming from Redding, California, I seriously doubt that she's ever been exposed to such distinct open space and diverse wildlife where one has the opportunity to really appreciate and recognize what's surrounding you, like the examples that Mr. Stevenson gave. And so many others, whether a part of the American Canyon community or not, carry these truly one-of-a-kind, treasured experiences and memories in association with the American Canyon wetlands. And now here in the Bay Area, we're already feeling the effects of climate change. Higher tides, more flooding, and stronger storms, which are reeling in tons of rain. It's not just inconvenient, but it's a real threat. As sea levels rise and storms get worse, we're seeing more flooding, damaged roads, and polluted water flowing into the bay. However, wetlands, and American Canyon is lucky to have them, but wetlands are one of our strongest and best defenses we have against climate change and this problem. Acting like giant natural sponges, they soak up floodwaters, protecting our homes and neighborhoods, especially in American Canyon, where we're in such close proximity to the water, making us one of the most susceptible communities. Wetlands are home to thousands of species, keeping our ecosystems alive and thriving, and they even go as far as cleaning our air by pulling carbon out of it and filtering our waters by catching harmful pollutants. American Canyon already does an exceptional job at preserving and protecting our wetlands, except it is crucial that we continue protecting our wetlands and prioritizing them. Especially under the circumstances of our current climate emergency, this is crucial to protect our homes, our health, and our future for not only us here now, but our youth and our rising generations. And as we already heard from Mr. Stevenson's excellent presentation, any plan to build homes or warehouses on the grasslands that border the wetlands marshes would be subject to sea level rise in the future, and would also have significant negative impact on some of the species that already use the grasslands for their habitat. I would also like to mention that the Regional Shoreline Adaptation Plan is a regional plan adopted last year by the San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Commission and the California Coastal Commission to address rising sea levels in the San Francisco Bay. Local governments in the Bay Area, including American Canyon, are now required by state law to develop sub-regional shoreline adaptation plans and submit those plans for approval. The Sierra Club Napa Group would like to welcome the opportunity to work with the City Council and City Manager to help create these plans that will protect our wetlands and surrounding land from future sea level rise that threatens not only our community, but all Bay Area shoreline cities and towns. As the Regional Shoreline Adaptation Plan states, put nature first whenever possible, prioritize natural infrastructure solutions that benefit ecosystems and the health of the bay as well as people, especially in the near term. Adapting to sea level rise will require a mix of green and gray infrastructure. Working with nature instead of against it can produce better results for both people and wildlife. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Kate. Those were great presentations by Mark, Yvonne, and Kate, so thank you for those presentations. Moving on to public comment. At this time, I'd like to open public comment for any items that are not on tonight's agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any?
I do. I have some speaker cards, but before we get started, I just want to remind everyone, if you want to speak on an item right now or an item that's on the agenda, please fill out a card. And also, you have 3 minutes for your comment. There's lights at the podium that will light up, like yellow, you have 30-second warning. When it's red, you're over time. So if we could try to stick with that. And I will get started with the public comments. I'm going to call Karen Berry. Yep.
Good evening, Karen.
Good evening, everybody. I came tonight because I feel this is the only way I can tell what's going on here in Napa County, especially now that I moved to at the Cove. I'm calling it invasion of my privacy. So, and I would like to invite all y'all to come to my apartment because I'm better at talk, showing, and telling. Is that possible?
It's possible, but go ahead with your.
Oh,
with your
okay,
presentation.
that's what I want. And the police chief and the sheriff, can you grab Oscar Ortez too? Because I told him about this about 5 years ago. And it seems to be getting worse and not better. Not stopped, I should say. And while I was sitting there, okay, and I want to read this. To do justice and judgment is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. That's in the book of the Bible, Proverbs 21, verse 3. And blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly. That's Psalms 1:1. And that presentation was a good presentation of how God created beauty in the world also. Not just people, but birds other animals.
Ma'am, if you could please talk directly into the microphone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
I'm not
Well,
sure that.
I just wanna know, how can I plan for y'all to come out there to the Cove apartment, my apartment, so I can show you and tell you what I've been dealing with here?
What I'll do, I'll have somebody meet with you in the back, get your information, and share it
okay.
with us, and I will personally come out and meet with you.
Okay, that's what I need. That's exactly what I need. And get Oscar Ortez. You gonna get Oscar and bring him with you?
We'll talk about it.
Because I found that Adult Services, a report on him for not protecting and serving. And y'all should replace that protect and serve sign in his office with these right here. Maybe he'll do something. Thank you, and I look forward to meeting with you.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay. Bill Harper.
See if I can do this. Good evening, members of the council, and city staff, and folks in attendance. Most of you know who I am, or many of you do. My name is Bill Harper. I'm serving now as the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce Community Foundation. And I'm just here to make a quick announcement so that everybody's aware. We're beginning our second year of operation. We're a fully tax-deductible 501c3 now. We are beginning what we refer to as a campaign, working in partnership with First 5 Napa. Our goals really are to take the program that they have in place, make sure that it's available to residents of American Canyon. We also discovered that they are not a 501c3. Their donations, they're passing through another organization who's taking a 10% cut of that. We're in our support that we're working for them. We're willing to use our 501c3 to pass through funds that will support their activities. Their focus is primarily on their First 5 book program and some of the car seat program that they just announced. I want to make sure that that's being disseminated to American Canyon residents, and it's one of the things that we're working on right now. So just want to make everybody aware of that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bill.
William Baker.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is William Baker. I'm a resident of Montevino. August was a busy month for Parks and City Works. I want to thank them personally for 2 items. Yes, William Baker is here to express his thanks and not complain. Well, almost. First, my German Shepherd Lila and I thank you personally for installing the dog water bowl fountain in Veterans, Shenandoah, and Silver Oak Park. Lila has thoroughly tested and approved each of these, and she reports they are a welcome addition to our summer morning and early evening walks. Again, thanks to you, the folks of the City Works and Parks Department, for these very welcome additions to our parks and city. Second, I would like to thank you for installing the no overnight parking signs along Broadway and Veterans Memorial Park. Thanks again to City Works for installing the signs along with the eye-catching flags. The Parks Department and city officials for making this important step possible. The signage is an excellent start and just in time. The next few months will be important for Veterans Memorial Park and the Montevino neighborhood. I encourage you to visit our city's largest public park regularly to see how it changes as the next door housing project fills. As you are well aware, with only 5 parking spaces, many in Montevino still believe parking overflow into our neighborhood will be an issue, particularly on Goldfinch Drive, Vine Terrace Way, Mockingbird, Ventana, and Montevino Drive. We'll keep you posted on developments. As the name implies, this is not a building an apartment building, but a place where the unhoused can find support to put them on a path to rejoin productive society. As this is a permanent supportive housing project, supportive housing, we can hopefully expect minimal tenant turnover. Setting the tone at the beginning will ensure our new neighbors know they are welcome in our city's largest park, but only if they respect the environment, the city, and its residents who expect park goers to do the same. I'll keep you, of course, posted about the long-anticipated development. Thank you again for the improvements to our city parks.
Thank you, William.
Tammy Wong.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and fellow residents and community members. I came to today's meeting because of the presentation by the Audubon Society, and I wasn't planning to speak, but I just had to come up and say it was awesome. Thank you so much for coming out and sharing that with all of us. I run at the American Canyon Wetlands 2 or 3 times a week for the last 3 or 4 years, and I stop and take pictures with my little phone camera, and they're nothing like yours. And I believe you so much when you share the diversity. It's like, oh my gosh, I want to see all that. And I know, Valerie, you're here with the Chamber of Commerce, and I would love if there is a way that you could do tours for the tourists and for people like me. I would pay money to go out there and see these birds firsthand, and maybe even you could loan cameras and we could take our own pictures with high quality equipment. I mean, there's an opportunity to put us on the map if this is indeed one of the best spots in California.
We run 2 walks a month for, we call them the Get Birders. And
Yeah.
we provide binoculars if you don't have them,
Yeah.
starting in September.
Yeah, no, but I want to rent a camera. I want to take pictures like you. Or I want a calendar featuring the American Canyon Wetlands that, you know, I can send to my family and say, this is where I live. This would put us on the map, I think. Thank you, Valerie. I'm glad you were here, and I'm glad you agree, and thank you all. Oh, and I agree with what he said, too, about doing what we can now to protect what we can for the future, because I think it's very special to hear Kate talk, because I remember hearing her sister talk, Emily, when we were discussing the gas station ban. And it's like, it's just so great, and I hope that they're born and raised here in American Canyon. I was born and raised in Vallejo. Well, I hope that their kids can appreciate our wetlands to the same degree that we appreciate it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
I have no other speaker cards. I do have a hand raised online.
Okay.
Okay, from online, I'm calling Karina Cervente. Give me one moment, Karina. Okay, there you go. Go ahead, Karina.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much, Mayor and Council and City staff for doing this wonderful proclamation. It's nice to see former Mayor Garcia, but I'm a little bit concerned about the way that it was not advertised. We have dozens of Hispanic-owned businesses in town, and none of them knew about it. You know, as you can see, none of them are there that I can see, and I'm not aware that they were notified. So I'm wondering if for next year the city and our elected officials can do a better job letting the Hispanic community know that this is happening. Invite them there, you know, make it a big deal, because we're over 30% of the community, you know, 30% of the people that live here in AC. So this is a very a missed opportunity to, you know, involve the Hispanic community in the city. And well, but other than that, I have some really good news. A couple of our friends, Vanessa Lara and Hector Valencia, got together and we actually are doing the first American Canyon Hispanic Heritage Day taking place this Saturday, September 6th, from 2 to 8 p.m. at the ABC Pumpkin Patch, 4225 Broadway, American Canyon. We're gonna have food trucks, ballet folklorico, music, jumpers, and it's gonna be a free community event. And it's brought to you by Taco Nambre, custom t-shirts and signs, and myself, Karina Cerventi and family. So we put this together because we didn't see anything that celebrated the Hispanic community in town. So we decided to make a difference, start, celebrating our culture, and we want everybody to be part of it, to come and celebrate with us and bring the family. We're gonna have vendors, music. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And we wanna thank a lot of our sponsors that are helping us. Jenny Harris, Realtor, American Canyon Orthodontist, Dr. Pestaña, Oral Surgery, Amy Lara Tax, oh my gosh, I forgot now. Well, we have a lot of them that are helping us.
Thank you,
take care of
Karina.
it.
You're at time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Karina. No one else online?
I have.
Okay, Fran?
Oh, no, wait, I just got one. I'm so sorry. Are we okay? You want to take it?
Yeah, go ahead with that, and then Fran after that.
Okay, I have Vanessa's iPhone. I'm gonna call, but please start with your full name. Go ahead, Vanessa. Oh, wait. Vanessa, are you muted?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. This is my first time after a long time talking in public. I'm not really good, but just like Karina mentioned, today was the proclamation for the Hispanic Heritage Month, and I was very impressed, dissatisfied that seeing any Latinos or Hispanic people there to receive it. So that would be to do something different for next year, to show some presence from us, being the 31% percentage of the population of Hispanic here in American Canyon, all the business that we have in American Canyon. So it would be nice that if we have some representation, and it will be another way, to let us know that this is happening so we can get more involved. And I think Karina covered already. We're going to have a celebration on Saturday the 6th. We hope to see you guys there. It's a free event, and we're all excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you. Okay, I have no other hands raised.
Thank you. Fran?
Thank you. I just want to say that I went out to the wetlands for the first time, and my son from Las Vegas talked me into getting a scooter. And so the first time we went out, he ran for 15 minutes, and I rode next to him, and it was just beautiful. And then the second time I went out with my other son, and we walked around the loop and saw all the beautiful animals, the birds and so much. And then the last time I went out, we walked over the dumps. So I've been out there 3 times now on my scooter. And for the first time, I got to see what the wetlands was like. They should have some, I know Barry takes you out on his bike, but more people should get out there that are handicapped, because it's beautiful. And we are so fortunate to have it. So that was a very wonderful presentation that he did. I'm sorry he left, but that was a good demonstration. I enjoyed that. So thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Seeing no one else with a hand up for public comment, no one else online, I'll close public comment and move to agenda changes. Are there any agenda changes? We have 6 items on consent. Hearing and seeing none.
If there aren't any, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
We have a second. Madam Clerk, can you do a roll call, please?
Yep.
It's not fixable. The thermostat doesn't control, unfortunately. It's a dummy thermostat.
Okay. Councilmember Cruz,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamatina,
Yes.
Councilmember Oro,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
Mayor Washington.
Yes. Okay, next is public hearing. We have 1 item on public hearing, and the item for item 11, the first reading of an ordinance amending the municipal code pertaining to business license fee program.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and community members. I'm Jem Cruz, Finance Director, and bringing forward for public hearing our proposed amendment to the municipal code pertaining to business license fees, the flat rate, and the exemption for charitable and nonprofit organizations. Currently, the municipal code mandates that all businesses obtain a license. In the code, there are fee exemptions for nonprofits, veterans, certain limited income individuals drawing Social Security, and businesses exempted by state law. In these instances, the groups are exempt from business license fees, but still must be licensed. The program is designed to ensure that businesses comply with all state, county, and city regulations and support safe and legitimate business operations in the city. City staff assists with this process by checking for all of these. Community events have grown in the past years, and managing vendor compliance has been difficult and cumbersome for the vendors and service providers working with the event organizers to make these events available to the community. Under the current process, the event organizer provides a list to the city, and each vendor or service provider must contain individual licenses. This is cost prohibitive to some vendors, especially if they're only here for that event, and time consuming for city staff. There are 2 amendments proposed. One in section 5.04.220 under exemptions for charitable and nonprofit organizations. In many cases, these groups frequently host the community events. The proposed amendment broadens the exemption to include service providers and vendors contracted by these exempt organizations, but only for the community event purposes. The other proposed amendment is in section 5.04.410, the business license fees flat rate. The proposed amendment introduces a new category for community special events. One license will be attained by the event organizers, not included in the exempt category, and the daily rate will be $200 per day, which is similar to another flat rate category already in the code. Under both of these proposals, the event organizers will still be required to confirm vendor compliance and documentation. This approach is expected to streamline the process and reduce the administrative burden and facilitate faster license issuances. Thank you. So now open to any questions?
Okay, thank you, Jim. Are there any clarifying questions from council?
I've got one, I guess. So if you could walk us through the process. Let's pick on Meet Me in the Street, just because Valerie's here. So next June, what does she need to do if this is adopted?
So if this is adopted as part of the special event process where they fill out the paperwork, and I think they already provide a list of the vendors and the service providers. So this includes service providers is DJs, the lighting, stage crew, entertainment, and then the concessions are the actual vendors. So they would provide a list, and then we will work. We will work and partner with them to confirm that they've complied. But the requirement for a license for these vendors that only will be at these events will be under the organizer's license that they would get through that special event permit.
Thank you.
Councilmember Oral.
So the question I wrote down as I was reading the packet, let's say for a food vendor, would they still have to, like I want to make sure that food safety is involved, would they still have to have food safety licenses, and would it be Napa County or the county that they're coming from?
It would be the Napa County. So, and any food vendor, whether they're based in another county, if they're coming into our county for an event, they would have to obtain the county health permit.
So there's still processes for them to go through to be legitimate vendors. We're just waiving this special event fee or simplifying it for them to go through that process. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Cruz.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what it sounds like to me, Jen, is that, so we're using you as an example for Meet Me in the Streets. So you'd basically be like the umbrella for all the vendors that come, and you take care of all, and ensure that all the licensing and health codes and everything are up to speed instead of us doing that. Is that what that is? That's all the question I have. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll open that up for you in a second. Seeing no other questions, I'd like to open it up for public comment on item number 11.
I have no speaker cards for that item, and, yep.
Hello, everybody. I'm Valerie Zizek-Maurice, President and CEO of the American Canyon Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Council, Mayor, City staff. This topic is actually very important to me as the organizer of Meet Me in the Street. And as the event grows, we're up over 200 vendors per event. And it has become very cumbersome for not just city staff, but our chamber to manage all of the business licenses. So what this proposed change to municipal code would do would allow the chamber to pull an umbrella permit over all of Meet Me in the Street. We would then allow vendors in under our business license. Of course, we would have to follow all county regulations, which means we still have to obtain the Napa County health permit for every food vendor that comes. So they issue us a permit that we then submit to the City of American Canyon, stating that all of our food vendors have gone through the ordinances that they need to be providing safe food service to our community. So what this would help is currently the food trucks are paying a $300 business license to attend Meet Me in the Street, and it's only for 9 hours of service, and they don't pay this in other cities. They also pay a $600 permit to the county, so the fees are becoming kind of hefty to them, and we're getting pushback on vendors wanting to come, and that also includes a DJ who has to pull, a $200 permit, and your small little vendors that work out of American Canyon, you have the $160 occupation home permit, and then you have it's roughly $35 to pull the business license. And once you get these really small vendors that are only doing 9 hours of service in our community and barely making what they're paying in fees, they don't want to come back to the event. And the whole goal is to create a great variety of food vendors, shopping opportunities, and to really bring to American Canyon what we're missing as a downtown. So by waiving these fees and not making the vendors pay these business license fees, it's going to allow us to continuously grow Meet Me in the Street, allow other nonprofit organizations to be starting new events, bringing cultural events, and to really grow the event community in American Canyon, making it a great, safe place and reasonably priced at the same time. So if you guys could approve this, take this into consideration, it really will streamline the process for not just the city staff, but the overall event community here in American Canyon. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Valerie. Any other public comment?
I have nothing else.
Okay. Then I'll close public comment and return back to council. Councilmember Oral.
Yeah, I don't have a comment. I guess that it's just introducing the first reading. Are we making a motion to do something, or are we adopting that draft reading that's in there now?
The staff recommendation is to would do the first reading, title only for this ordinance, as opposed to reading the whole thing, word by word.
So tell me, what do you want me to say, and I'll say it.
So the motion would be
Yeah.
to introduce a motion for first reading of the following ordinance, and then you read the title of the ordinance. That's part of your motion.
If you turn to page 318,
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I can, oh, so it's the reading. Yeah, I don't have the number 318 because I'm on Granicus, so.
so the page 3 of item 11, so item 11 has a couple pages, so if you go to page 3, it's the first page of the ordinance.
Yeah.
And then you would propose to introduce and first reading of an ordinance and then read all the stuff at the top.
Yeah, so I would like to make a motion to introduce and the first reading of an ordinance amending the municipal code pertaining to business licenses.
And I'll second that, even though I'm sure he meant he wanted to waive reading.
Waive.
Waive reading and, what is it, by title in full or whatever?
What you do on the first reading of an ordinance is waive reading the entire ordinance,
Oh.
but just read for the record the title of the ordinance. And if it's helpful, staff can read the title into the record for you, call it a staff recommendation, and then you could say, I move the staff recommendation.
I would like the city manager to do that for me, and I can move that motion.
You're making that way too easy for him.
And I'll still second it.
Whereas now you got the guy with the bad voice doing it.
Well, we could have someone else read that, or it is part of the staff's recommendation,
I don't
isn't
see
it?
it, yeah.
Staff recommends that you waive reading the entire ordinance and introduce by title only an ordinance of the City Council of the City of American Canyon, California, amending Chapter 5.04220 and Chapter 5.04.410 of Title V of the American Canyon Municipal Code, regulating exemption for charitable and nonprofit organizations and business license fees flat rate.
So moved.
I'll second.
We now have a second. We have a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Cruz?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamatina?
Yes.
Councilmember Oro?
Am I supposed to say yes now? Yeah. Yeah, okay, yes.
Vice Mayor Joseph?
Yes.
Mayor Washington?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay. We'll now move to the next item, second item for business, item number 12, voting delegates for alternate for the League of California Cities 2025 Annual Business Meeting. Mr. Holly?
Okay, Mayor and Council, this is an annual item where council selects the voting delegate and an alternate for the League of California Cities 2025 Annual Business Meeting. You guys have all the information regarding that conference in your packet. And I am just looking for who you would like to select to do the voting and who would like to be the alternate.
Do we have to select, or can someone nominate themselves?
Typically, it has always been the mayor as the voting delegate, and the vice mayor, if he's attending, is usually the alternate, but I believe you're free to choose whoever you would like.
Usually it's someone who's going to be going.
Whoever's going to this conference.
Maybe we can do the process of elimination there,
Well,
because
that makes it easy.
my understanding is maybe only one of you will be attending.
Who would probably be going would be Councilmember Brandon Cruz. If you would accept that appointment. Is that basically how I would?
If you want to make that motion, I imagine one of the others of you will second that, and we can.
Yeah. I'll nominate Councilmember Cruz to be the voting delegate to the League of California Cities annual event in Long Beach, California.
I'll second that.
Okay. And do we need to make a vote on an alternative?
Maybe we could do it at the same motion.
Well, there's no reason to
Is
have
there-
an
Who
alternate
else
if
is
there's
going?
only-
Nobody else is going.
Okay, so we don't need an alternative.
Nobody
Yeah.
else is
You have to
going.
clone yourself.
I do.
Okay.
Alternate yourself, yeah.
We have a second for the primary.
Okay. I'm sorry, it was a little, it was nominated by Councilmember Oro and seconded by
Vice Mayor Joseph.
Vice Mayor Joseph and Brando Cruz as the voting delegate. That is good. And for your vote, Councilmember Cruz?
First, I humbly accept.
Councilmember Lamadina?
Yes.
Councilmember Oro?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joseph?
Yes.
And Mayor Washington?
Yes.
Mayor, and just for a little bit of context, this year at the conference, there's not expected to be any actual resolutions at the business meeting to be voted on, although procedurally something could happen at the conference, petitions, et cetera. Ordinarily, if there is a measure to be considered, that content will be distributed by CalCities to you all. And so at the same time that you would be doing this nominating, you would also be providing direction to that delegate on how you would want the city to vote. It isn't just meant to be a free-for-all. So in this case, though, there isn't any material because there isn't probably going to be anything. So that's why there's nothing.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to our next business item, number 13, the Community Grant Program Policy. I believe that's Ali Akita.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an informational item, and Deputy City Manager Akita will explain. Staff is looking for direction to ourselves and to the Parks and Community Services Commission.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Sorry, one other quick thing. I apologize, Ali. In front of you is a modified attachment number 1 that identifies the current policy that we're seeking direction on modification to. And the council has copies. Yes. Yeah, in front of you, you have copies of, and there's copies at the wall.
I do not have it. Future agenda. Is this different from what was sent over?
No, you were emailed this
Okay,
also
great, thank you.
yesterday.
You got one?
Thank you for that. So yes, as our city manager has teed up the conversation, we're here for some guidance and clarity and direction for the community grant program policy update to make sure that we are aligned with council's direction and priorities. The community grant program policy was originally adopted by council on March 1st, 2020 as part of the Parks and Community Services in 2020. As part of the Parks and Community Services work plan for this fiscal year, it was our understanding that the intent was to update this policy to strengthen the program as a funding source for the American Canyon nonprofit organizations, so that way they can deliver programs, services, and events that benefit the American Canyon community. At the August 14th PCS meeting, a few questions were brought up. Specifically, which body will have the authority to award the community grants? Council upon the recommendation of PCS or the commission directly? And then number 2, does the council intend for this grant program to distribute small amounts of funding more broadly across as many nonprofits as possible, or distribute large amounts more strategically on mission-driven priorities, even if that means larger amounts to fewer organizations? In addition, while this was not included in the staff report, we did want to take this opportunity to ask a couple more questions for clarification to help draft this update. So buckle up, I have quite a few more. The policy also outlines where it does require at least a 70% where the program participants need to be American Canyon residents. This brings up a very unique and interesting challenge for these, potential challenge for these nonprofits. And what I mean by that is, how would we track that metric? For instance, community events, like, would we require each person to sign in? Would we require rosters? Are we asking for a self-affidavit? Are we asking for a self-certified form? Additionally, there is another question around formal recommendations to council. Once the commission makes its recommendation to council, again, the commission, this body is an advisory commission. They don't actually make decisions. They make recommendations to the council. Once they make that recommendation, the commission make the recommendation to council, would council like the applicant to come to this body and give a presentation in addition to their application? Or will the application, along with the recommendation, be sufficient for you to be able to award that grant amount? And in addition, what if you don't like the recommendation? How would we handle that? Also, in addition, can you also clarify how the funds will be used? The policy outlines one-time or seed money for a program or a project. Does that mean that funds cannot be applied to an annual community event or program? For instance, we've talked about Meet Me in the Streets or Juneteenth. Those are annual events. So we might need some clarity around that. And can we also confirm that funds cannot be used for administrative or operational costs? There was also an idea to structure the grant program similar to TBID. And what I mean by that is accepting applications on a rolling basis throughout the fiscal year. Having 2 review periods, first being in December, and if funds remained, having a second review in May. Currently, the policy provides an annual cycle. And then lastly, for transparency purposes, the commission recommended to change the closeout report from 60 days to 120 days, just based off of their feedback of actually doing programs and events and making sure that there's enough time to be able to pull everything together. But really the main question is, who is that report given to? Is it the commission or is it council? So thank you again for your time and providing clarity for us to be able to move forward and update this program policy the best way that we can, and to make sure that we are aligned with what your expectations are. That concludes our staff report.
Thank you, Ally. I think I'll open it up for council to ask any clarifying questions, but I think there are people here that may want to kind of share their thoughts on that as well, which will also help us understand. I think we all have collectively some ideas of how these grants should be done, but it'd be nice to hear what the public is asking for. So I'd like to start off by asking for any clarifying questions by council for Ms. Akita. No clarifying questions? Okay, so I'll open it up to public comment so we can hear what the public has to say or ask about the community grants, if there's any.
Okay. I have Valerie Zizek-Maurice.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Valerie Zizek-Maurice, President, CEO of the American Canyon Chamber of Commerce. I'm also going to put on the board chair of the TBID committee hat for this conversation as well. So I think community grants are really important, and I think giving grants to multiple organizations throughout the year is something that is very needed. I think that when we're talking about community grants, we want to make sure that these events are drawing our community, serving our community. When we award the TBID grants, those are more of a tourism focused, and that's what we make our recommendations on is, are we bringing people into our local hotels? Are we having a regional draw for these grant opportunities? So they submit an application, we put it up to the committee, we review the applications, we determine what events we think are going to draw visitors from outside of the area, and then we award those funds to those events that we feel are something that's going to put a regional draw. I think for the community events, it really is, are we supporting our local community? Are these community members putting on these events? And where are the proceeds of the event going? Is it serving our community, or is this for a profit? So when taking this into consideration, I think you should be looking at the smaller organizations that maybe need startup funds to get new events going, need financial support. As we all know, sponsorship is very challenging, and until your event has a large draw behind it, it is very challenging to get that community support, that financial support behind it. And I think as we continue to grow as a community, we celebrate our diversity. Awarding funds to multiple different events and opportunities in our community is what's providing the better and greater service for American Canyon. So I don't necessarily love the idea of just larger grants to specific events. I think spreading the money and the love across the American Canyon community, allowing people to have opportunities to start new events and to grow the current ideas that they have is really the best way to distribute these funds. And as the chamber, I do my best not to ask for any money for Meet Me in the Street because I know that we have the ability to bring in a large crowd of business followers that help support it. But there do come times where you're just not meeting the numbers and any little bit helps. So I think for the smaller groups, they need this even more than the bigger, more well-established organizations do. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you.
Any other?
Farah Coloma.
Good evening. I get a little nervous. But thank you, Valerie. Everything that you said, we are that small nonprofit. As you know, we have Manila Munchies coming up on October 11. Last year, we didn't ask for any funding from the city. And we became a nonprofit this year. And this year, we are hoping to ask for either a sponsorship or funding. We did come in July, hoping that we'd be able to get on the agenda. We didn't quite hear back from anyone. We tried to come in August, but then it was canceled. And then we're now in September, and we have a month left for our event. But I wanted to share about Manila Munchies. We are asking that the city would either help fund our event or even just sponsor. We're looking for lights, stage, and generator for our event. It is going to be at Shenandoah. We do have a lot of vendors that are coming in from outside of our city, so thank you for that business license ordinance. So we are very, very happy for that one. But we are that small nonprofit. We are currently working with ACMS and ACHS. ACMS has not had a Filipino club in many, many, many years. We have just started a new Filipino club there with the athletic director and a few other teachers. And our event will be helping to fund that club. We're also working with ACHS to revamping their Filipino club and helping them to bring in more students to learn about the culture. And from there, we're hoping to be able to provide them funds so that they can learn about our culture, they can learn dances, and even filter it through the college and getting a mentorship program from the middle school to the high school to the college. And so when we have these events, it definitely is a not-for-profit. We don't profit, we don't pay ourselves. All the money that goes to this event does go back into the community, and it brings out the community where we can share our culture. And this one is a special one because it's not just the Filipino culture. We're calling it Global Pinoy. So we are having this event where we are. It's like a fusion of cultures. So cultures that say, like one of our vendors is Sushi Obsession. She came out with what's hers? Sushi Break Lumpia. So there's a lot of vendors there that will be having where you will be able to try out just an array of food. But yes, that's basically, we are that nonprofit. And so with time being of the essence, we're asking if somehow we can get a meeting going or something where we can share about Manila Munchies and see if you guys can help with our events. Thank you. Oh, that was 3 minutes.
I have no other speaker cards and no hands raised online.
Okay, then I'll close public comment, return to the council for any questions that we may have. Councilmember Cruz.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I did have a question for the Manila Munchies. You mentioned that you're interested in sponsorships for stage, lights, and sounds for cost. Well, what is the cost of that, if I may ask?
So last year we paid just for the stage itself was $3,000, and then the entertainment part was about the same. It was at two. I think it was 2,500. The generator and the
So if I'm doing my math here, it's a little less than 7,000 to 8,000-ish. Okay, all right, thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, well, like I said, I hope that we can do something to help Manila Munchies. I'm going to be writing a check later on, so don't leave, and so, but there's that. But getting back to the policy itself, I think some of the issues that were raised, I'll throw out my 2 cents worth. It's a challenge as to whether you give out a lot of smaller amounts or a few bigger ones. And maybe what I'm trying to think of is that maybe we put a dollar cap on the max. So, you know, the maximum might be 5,000 if you've got 30,000. And hopefully, you know, people will ask for reasonable amounts. I know in the past there would be a lot of, you know, $200 or $300 items that Boy Scouts or some of the sports programs would ask for. And so there tend to be only a small number of big ticket requests. And I think if we put a dollar cap, that will assist in solving the problem. If somebody says, I want 10 or 20,000, you can say, you know, you get 5. So that would be one way. That's how I would throw out how to manage that dollar amount. As far as the residency requirement, that is a tough one, and you know, under limited circumstances, we can use the city's AI cell phone thing, but on a lot of cases, that's just not practical. So it might be that instead of, you know, fixating on its 75% and how do you prove it, might be to just say the intent is to encourage it to be local. So, you know, if part of your proposal is to promote it in San Francisco, that might be a clue that you missed the concept. But so I would get away from, you know, black and white residency requirements because you can't prove them very easily. I think if I would strongly discourage getting a second presentation, because at some point, if we're doing everything the PCS is doing, we don't need the PCS, or, you know, and it defeats the purpose of saying we have somebody that we've delegated some responsibility to. And then lastly, the debate between seed money and one-time versus ongoing, it might be better to just say we don't want to spend money on overhead and administrative costs. But if you do want to have an annual event like Manila Munchies, I don't think, you know, I think it's appropriate to say, okay, we'll fund you, you know, a certain amount each year, you know, and evaluate on how that event is growing and getting better. We could also throw in a caveat that says, you know, we encourage seed money, and, you know, so that there's a preference to first-time, you know, events versus ongoing ones. But I think the more flexibility we give ourselves, the better. And in general, I'm thinking the PCS probably ought to be able to review and make recommendations. And as a council, you know, if we second guess them, they'll quit being on the commission probably. So I think, you know, I think those are my comments, and I'm not suggesting I have the right answers. I just have opinions. Thank you.
Councilmember Oral.
Thanks. I have opinions and they'll be right. So it's a joke. So I'm just going to go down the list, Director Alley, just so that you can get the feedback. In terms of one-time or seed, listen, I think if it's a reoccurring event, we should allow it, especially if it's a good event. We want to support it and continue to support it. I don't think it needs to be a seed thing. Then the verification for participants requiring the 70% be American Canyon residents. Let's not kill ourselves. That's going to be very difficult to do. It's administrative. But there should be a policy that it should be held in American Canyon for the majority of American Canyon residents. And if we stated that, you know, I think that'll be good. And if they come from out of town and they're 60, 70%, fine. They're here. They might go to a restaurant or stay at a hotel. We're totally fine with that. We should be totally fine with that. Handling incomplete or ineligible applications. We went through this in a process when we were picking commissioners, and for both of our, for all of our commissions. If it's incomplete or wrong, especially if it's major, you don't qualify, right? And that is actually a standard we want to have people to meet, that they can actually fill out an application correctly. If it's a typo or something, obviously you can use leeway for that. But if you can't get the basics down, you're probably not going to get any funding. Rollover unawarded funds. Obviously, if this thing gets bigger, there might be something we want to do it. So that's how I would vote on that. Conflict of interest. I think we should use the if there's a PCS member or somebody that is voting on it, they would have to recuse themselves if they're involved with that. That's standard ethical stuff that we all have to do. And in fact, it's probably already in their guidelines when they took the ethical standards for becoming a commissioner. So they should remove themselves from that, particularly if they have a financial interest on it. Community and transparency. I think you build it into your regular comms planning, city manager letter, for social media, invite people out. I don't think we need to do a roadshow on it or anything like that, but do spread the word. 30% funding limit. I kind of like this one. And I don't know, Mr. Hawley, when we had, I recall doing this and we were allocating funds just a few years ago for this on a regular basis. And what we'd like to do was spread the love, right? And so, you know, something as big as Manila Munchies, $1,000 is helpful, but to like Little League, it might be a lot, right? And so, but we are able to help people out along the way. And I think if we spread that love a little bit more, it's much better. I think they should be an organized, registered nonprofit. Honestly, I think they need to do like some sort of 501 to be involved. Otherwise, we're going to get a lot of people with some creative ideas who, again, I'm not trying to create too much work for people, but I think there should be some barriers, not barriers, but at least some things that you need to meet the standard to receive public funds. So you just can't just show up out of your bedroom with an idea that I'm going to have a block party and we're going to invite all the community, and that's just not going to work. We would like to see people meet the standard. Compliance, you know, you asked on expectations. You know, if you listen, I think if they submit a report, it would be great. But if you wanted a consequence, if they don't, because we would like to know where that money went and how it was spent. If they don't submit one, they're just basically ineligible for funds in the future because they didn't complete it. And then on the count, I would love PCS to do the advisory work, recommend it to us, and that the council votes. And then I would just like to say, on this staff report, I really appreciate it. I love the thoroughness of the thought process of how we do these grant funds. When you look at the previous one and this one, or the one we're trying to create, obviously this is more thoughtful and thorough. And I think we're going to have a better outcome once we get to this point. So thank you for that, and for the amount of work and thought that went into it. It got my mind thinking about a few things as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for me, Ally, I think all the questions that you had were answered. But I do know Vice Mayor Joseph put us all on the spot by saying he's got a check ready for Manila Munchies. So he's putting us all on the spot for that. But I also know that it appears like there is a sense of urgency because the event is coming up pretty soon. But I think some consideration should also be done for any event that is going to have a return on its investment. If we're going to be giving money to an event, and that event is going to, in turn, fund and support other small groups in that effort, that's something that we need to focus on as well and make sure that the PCS is aware of that. That, for what I heard tonight, is that you're giving back to different smaller groups. So whatever you benefit from, you are giving back. So that's an important piece of what you guys are doing as well. I agree with Councilmember Oro and Councilmember and Vice Mayor Joseph that the PCS should be the one that previews and then submits all that information for us. I think they, like you said, you know, why do we have the commission if they can't do that, right? So I would appreciate that as well. So with that, I have a question for you. If the majority of your questions have been answered by us for direction.
Let me just double check.
While you're looking, I think Councilmember Oro has one more question.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback. I just want to piggyback off what you were saying in terms of giving, like an applicant giving back to the community in a way. That should be part of the questionnaire, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Correct. And so that kind of goes back into just the transparency, the reporting. So what we were thinking, and just I want to clarify with this body, would you like that reporting to be at this level, or would you like it to be back to PCS?
I heard PCS.
Yeah, I'd give it back. I guess in my mind, if we're going to delegate responsibility to PCS, then we delegate that responsibility. Maybe formally approving the expenditure is in our bailiwick, but again, it should be something where we're just approving the recommendations.
Yeah.
How I look
and
at
then,
it.
and then maybe just to bring it full circle, if you get a report to PCS, throw it on the consent calendar or an agenda item so that we can see it sometime too.
Perfect. And then I just want to clarify, because we have a cap of, I heard a cap of 5,000, and then I heard about there was a 30% threshold. So with an amount, for instance, for this year, we have been allocated $30,000. Would we want to go with the 30%? What is that, 30%?
9,000, because I already worked it out on the paper.
Yeah.
I'm not that smart.
I'm not a finance person. I don't have a calculator in front of me. Thank you, Vice Mayor Joseph. So, for instance, you're going to give more money to fewer groups in that case. So what I'm getting is the cap would be a larger amount to fewer groups versus spreading it out to more groups.
And for me, I think it's case-by-case type scenario. If you sit there and just blanket it, and the ones that come to my mind right now, you have the Feral Cat group that has come to us. You have Juneteenth that has come to us. You know, you have now Manila Munchies who have come to us, all with different budgetary restrictions that those individual groups have. So I think it should be a case-by-case, and again, using the PCS to evaluate that. Saying $5,000 flat, I mean, you may get $5,000 flat, and that might cover the whole budget for somebody that's requesting money, but it only might hit 10% of what another group is needing. So I think case-by-case is important. And again, they need to sell it to the PCS by the time it comes to us. I think that's important, not to just blanket it.
And to follow up on that, it's almost like the PCS's job should be to try to spread the love as much as they can.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you say, okay, I'm only going to give $10 to everybody, but allow them to use some discretion and, basically figure out how to make it all work. Or at least see how it plays out the first year or two, because.
I will say this part of the conversation was pretty lengthy. We could not come to a consensus as a commission. I did have a couple commissioners that wanted a cap, and then I had another commissioner who wanted to give out smaller amounts. And so that's where I think that's why we're spending so much time on trying to have a little bit more of a set amount of what we want to do here. I can't imagine that you want to do $1,000 grants. Can we all agree that we don't want to do incremental $1,000 grants? Because that did come up of doing where an applicant would apply for at threshold
2 or 3,000.
Yeah, at a time. And so they would have an application and they would apply. They would check a box for, they could say up to 5 $1,000 grants. That was an idea.
So,
Yes.
Councilmember Orr?
Yeah, so this discussion has got me thinking a little bit more. First of all, on the timing, I actually think this should be like an annual thing, right? So everybody can just prep and be ready to go for the year. It also provides a little bit more planning. If you miss that cycle, go to the next cycle. And if we don't allocate all that money, it rolls over to the next cycle and people have more. We're now giving you direction to give PCS direction to go make some decisions.
Okay.
However, I think we owe you guidelines and a policy that gives that parameters. And I don't think we're going to have it tonight, but if we can give you some guidelines, and I think we're there. I'm actually okay with a $1,000 grant. I don't know if I'm okay with rolling $1,000 grants for the year. So if you want 4 of those, ask for $4,000 at the beginning of the year and show us how you're going to spend it and use it. Because, maybe there's a health seminar that I'm going to do quarterly for senior citizens or something like that. And I need to buy supplies on a quarterly basis. I don't know how that would work, but I think also that we ought to be strong in our direction to Ms. Akita tonight so that the PCS is guided by some of the policy decisions we make. And maybe that might come back to us because I was looking at an old policy. We were trying to create a new policy. But we can make it stronger so that they have some guardrails to work within as they're making recommendations to us.
Councilmember Lamartina.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking exactly what Councilmember Oral was stating. Definitely parameters and more specific guidelines. And to the Manila Munchies back there, have you reached out to like United Rental and places like that? Yeah, they denied you. Okay. All right, thank you.
What was my question? Vice Mayor Joseph.
Interrupt me if the question comes back.
It will.
Because now I'm forgetting what so on the funding arrangement, I'm thinking in my head, if we didn't have those parameters and just said, hey, make requests, and we have 30,000, we get $50,000 worth of requests. One of the things the PCS is going to do is kind of go through and say, okay, we'll fund these at full amounts, we'll fund these at half, we may just fund everybody at a discounted so that it equals 30. That may seem more abstract or ill-defined, but on the other hand, that's kind of how it works, and I think it's fine to say we don't necessarily have dollar caps or percentages or whatever. You submit your requests. We may put a total cap. Obviously don't ask for 50 grand or whatever, but put in your request, make your best pitch, and part of the PCS's job is to try to figure out how to be fair and reasonable. And that can either be discounting everybody to fit 30, or it could be approving 2 or 3 that are really critical, or some regulars, and they'll be able to figure it out somewhat on the fly, even though that's probably not the best way to take care of business. But there's that as an option.
Yeah, and City Manager, I know you have your light on, but I had just one more quick statement I was going to make. Tonight we have a young man here from the Scouts, right? And it may be the Scout that may want to put in for a grant, and maybe $1,000 to the Scouts is huge. So, I wouldn't want to eliminate the Scouts from having the opportunity to submit an application to support their group. Right? And I know we have the ladies, the Girl Scouts, the new to American Canyon. They may want to request. I think those little amounts are important for smaller groups, and I don't want to eliminate them from having the opportunity or thinking that they would not be eligible to apply for those same type of grants.
I agree.
City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to add a piece of clarity around conflict of interest. So because most of these nonprofit groups don't actually employ people, either commissioners or council members or have spouses or whatever employing people, the financial conflict of interest really isn't at play. You or the PCS commissioners really aren't employees. There is the side of conflict of interest around the appearance of impropriety, and that's a much more central theme to the individual and their decision-making abilities. So definitely a lot grayer of an area there. So something to keep in mind. Also, our PCS at this point isn't an actual decision-making body, so they don't go through the same sort of trainings that we do around conflict of interest. So we can work on getting some of those trainings updated for them. But again, this policy would come back to you all. So this is direction, information. We're going to take it one more time back to PCS, kind of refine it, and then we'll bring it back to you for final adoption. I think we have some clarity on where the council wants to go. And I mean, to Vice Mayor Joseph's point, there will be a bit of trial and error here, for probably a year or two, and we'll get pretty close and come back and refine it and get it exactly how we want it.
Okay, so for tonight, do you need anything from us? You have enough?
No, that was really helpful. Thank you so much.
Okay, so then we'll close item number 13. And we're at item number 14, Community Development, Building, and Safety Update. Brent. Very nice. Oh, would it be inappropriate for me to go back? Because there's a question that I didn't get answered. Sorry, Brent.
You're in charge, Mayor. You get to run the meeting.
Okay. I think that there was a topic of urgency for the Manila Munchies that you guys put in and asked because you have your event coming up. Would we need to do a vote on if we are supporting that, or is that something that needs to be calendared for another day?
Yeah, unfortunately, Mayor, that particular topic's not on the agenda, and it really isn't a council action. We haven't opened any sort of awards or anything like that. But let me take this information back and see what we have going and what we might be able to come up with outside of this program, and think of it that way. So we'll be in touch.
I just didn't want that to go.
We didn't ignore you. We're going to do maybe something a little bit differently.
So my apologies. And apologies, Brent, for. Now it's back to you. Thank you.
All right, well, good evening, Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. I'm Brent Cooper, Community Development Director, and pleased to provide a building and safety update, kind of letting you know what's going on in our building and safety division. Okay, I want to start very big picture. The mission for the Building and Safety Department is to safeguard public health, safety, and welfare, and there's some principal ways that it happens. It adopts, through the City Council, the California Building, Electrical, Mechanical, Plumbing, and Green Codes. So this is done every 3 years, and there'll be a new cycle coming next calendar year. So you'll be seeing us again about that issue come in the fall. Consistent with those plans, we review construction documents. So as people come in to build things in town, they do review of them to make sure they're consistent with the code, ultimately issue the building permits, and conduct inspections to make sure that they're done right. Here's some of the lead staff we have in our building division. Starting on the upper left and kind of going clockwise, we have Laura Welch. She's our permit technician here at City Hall, American Canyon resident for many, many years and wonderful family. Ron Beeler, he is our contract building inspector. He is also, building official, and he's also the lead principal with the firm BPR that provides services. Jim Campo, kind of moving to the right there, he's a building inspector. He's also the building official, I believe, for the town of Yountville, so he has very good qualifications. We have Walter Madden, he's another building inspector. Going to the middle and the bottom there, we have Stacy Barker. She is a permit technician. She helps out the workload with Laura Welch. She's a BPR employee, and she works off-site and does a tremendous job. And then we have Julianne Gilfus, also another resident of American Canyon, and she assists with getting building permit fees paid and providing records and also correspondence. So kind of we have a small, tight, efficient team. Maybe just a little bit of a Citizens Academy here for those that aren't familiar with our building permit process. There are 7 simple steps to the permit process. We have an electronic intake, so no more schlepping around giant tree-sized logs of paper and then sending it to different places off-site. It's all done electronically, so it's very fast and efficient. We collect the plan review fees when the intake happens. They're routed to planning, building, public works, and fire, typically, our usual folks. They review the plans, provide comments, they go back to the applicant, maybe some correspondence back and forth on that. And then when all the corrections are made and the plans meet the code and the fees are paid, then the permit's issued. At that point, we have building inspections, and then finally, the part we all enjoy, the building occupancy and grand opening. And as you can see, a lot of people use our buildings, especially at the grand opening. And I think we can all agree we all want to see safe buildings. But we're all pretty happy when we get to the end and can greet a new business or new activities happening in our town. Kind of a status on where we are today, what's going on real time. We are currently reviewing 130 building permit applications. We have probably 300 permits that are in inspection process. Interestingly, to me at least, 60% of the permits that we issue are for home improvements. So there is a tremendous amount of contact between our building and safety staff and our residents. And people who are making improvements to their home, it's great for them, it's great for the community, it's super important because that's where you live. And I think, that's really not lost on us. And the volume and number of people who we come in contact with, it's really in touch with the community. So here's some of the things that people tend to do, or sort of our largest permit numbers would be kitchen and bath remodels, water heater, HVAC replacement, and solar panels. Here are some of the higher profile projects that are in plan review today. We're super excited and doing everything we can to help move along the Ecology Center. So that's a recent application submittal. We have our first, I think, incorporated Napa County, solar farm. The site's been graded today. Those permits are reviewed by our cousins in coordination with us in Public Works. And then we're working on reviewing the structures that'll be built there for the solar farm. We have the third and final warehouse on Commerce Court, known as the SDG 220 Distribution Center. The applicant likes to name it that way because 220 means 220,000 square feet. Hampton Inn, just down the road here, that application is under review. This had a zone change and went through a very detailed planning process with some really great outcomes. So we're excited about the project and looking forward to seeing that move forward. In Watson Ranch, of course, we've seen a burst of homes there, a lot of new residents enjoying American Canyon, establishing their lives here. The newest subdivision is called Sorrel, and these are smaller homes, and they have about 7 floor plans. There's quite a few, so we're pretty excited about that. Another subdivision, fairly recent, 25 homes, now called Lot 8. So it's still fairly early in the process. It doesn't have a marketing name yet, so you can't sign up for the house yet. But what's nice about these homes is they back up to the new community park in Watson Ranch. And if you go out there and take a look, these homes are elevated above the park. So the backs of the homes are going to have wonderful views and great access to this beautiful new park in Watson Ranch. So that's something to keep your eye on. And then we have a new builder who's purchased 33 of the 35 lots over in Canyon Estates, east side of town, half-acre lot minimum. And they have been bringing to us home applications. They have several single-story floor plans, which are wonderful because you just don't see that very often these days. And as you can tell from the pictures, the 2-story homes are going to be pretty nice too. Projects that are under construction, The Home to Suites Hotel, this project has suffered a little bit from the way in which it's been managed by the builder, and we've been working coordinating with them. They have a new construction manager. We're very happy about that, very encouraged by correspondence, and looking forward to seeing it move forward. If you go there, you'll notice that the construction fencing is down. They're putting landscaping. They did build Main Street from where it ends at Antonina over to South Napa Junction Road, which is a wonderful amenity for all the properties there and the church and just circulation in general. So they have accomplished a lot. And so we're really, we've been spending a lot of time with the folks throughout its construction process, numbers of meetings, and so we're really going to be excited to see this finished. You can see the Oat Hill Apartments. Recently, the structures are being built on the top of the hill. You know, it's interesting when we go through the planning process, we have the photo simulations, and you kind of think, is it really going to look like that? I think it does. It kind of lays on the hill quite nicely. It's, there are 3 stories, but given the height of the hill, the scale, the structures are pretty nice. And we went through quite a process with the new buyer, and there are different ideas about how to build the project. So it's kind of nice to see that kind of work its way through. The one thing that hasn't changed at all are the stunning views that you'll get from the top of the hill. We're back again to Watson Ranch, under construction, the Harvest subdivision. This has been under construction now for, gosh, a year and a half or so. And there are still homes to be built, so if you're in the market, get your new home there. But it's really nice to see the neighborhood shape up. When we went to the Planning Commission, we were concerned because it fronts onto Rio Del Mar, and how would those homes look? Because Rio Del Mar is an east-west roadway, and if you can see there and pay attention, there's been special architecture for those homes that are visible from Rio Del Mar, but also within the subdivision, at the ends of the streets, there's some attention to detail there. So when you see that, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I think it really gives a quality look to the neighborhood, and considering how long these homes stay there, you know, it has lasting benefit. Kind of things, maybe a reflection on the last fiscal year. That's 12 months. It ended at the end of June, so we just finished it. So kind of reflect a little bit. There were 560 permits completed, so I'll keep that. 66% of them were home improvements. So once again, you know, that trend does continue. About 10% are tenant improvements, interestingly enough. Kind of hadn't really thought about it before, but that's kind of gives you a sense. We are a much more residential community than we are commercial. Commercial's important, everything's important, but just kind of interesting for the comparison. Some of the higher profile projects that were finished, Lemos Point Apartments, Napa Cove Apartments, and 66 of the homes in Watson Ranch were completed in the last 12 months ending in June. Other larger projects on commercial is the SDG 217 warehouse, and for those paying attention, that is 217,000 square feet. The Copart project off Green Island Road was completed, and PG&E finished its headquarters, which is a really nice corporate presence in American Canyon, particularly in emergencies, because they do maintenance, and having the headquarters there is kind of nice. We completed 2,861 permits, and for the mathematicians in the room, I know you're wondering how many that is per permit. Average is about a little over 5.1 inspections per permit, but if you think about permits in the same way you think about people, some people need more attention than others. So when you look at it at the granular level, 5.1 is a meaningful number, which, you know, at a high level is pretty good, but some do take more than others to get through the process. And then $87 million in construction valuation. So that's pretty nice. When you think about the future of the city and development as an engine of growth that provides revenues for everything else that we do, grants, and everything else. So it's super important. Things coming up on the horizon. We are looking forward to launching our new software, OpenGov. This helps folks to be able to have a web page that they can log into, find the status of their permit. They can do searches on a variety of issues so they can get their own information. It'll really help with our servicing. We're looking forward to meeting a fresh group of people in the Citizens Academy in October. We're also looking at professional design review services for major residential and commercial. I know that we're listening to people, and there have been some fair arguments about some of the higher profile projects that could have been done a little better. And so we're looking to get some outside sources where people are, that's their profession. They really know what they're doing. And then they can help all of us work together to improve the way in which development that really contributes to the look and feel of the city. We're not looking at little things, but the bigger projects. Coming in January, I mentioned the new building codes coming up. This is a state law. We all have to adopt it, and so that's coming up. We also mentioned earlier tonight at the meeting the regional climate action and adaptation plan with our friends in Napa County. I'm going to be having some hearings on that and some information this fall. Things should be cooking, I would say, probably the beginning of next year, where we're starting to implement the easiest components of it. And then we'd love to hear from people, all of you. You can stay in touch. I have a QR code here, this is slide deck is on our website. So if you're interested, it takes you directly to our website for development construction updates. Many of them have links where you can go and you can provide your input, and we respond to all inquiries. Or you could just do it the old-fashioned way and call us, send us a letter, or visit us. So always glad to talk to people. With that, I'm glad to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from council? Councilmember Oral.
Hey, thank you for that presentation, Mr. Cooper. One of the conditions of approval for the Home to Suites is undergrounding the telephone lines on Highway 29, part of our beautification process. Can you give us an update on how this is going to play out over the next few days? Because they're looking close, but the lines are still up.
They are. And this is a good, well, I'm glad you raised it. It's part of a larger issue. And I'm going to have to say that there is undergrounding the overhead utilities has been a goal for American Canyon on Highway 29 particular for a long time. And there is a policy in the Broadway District Specific Plan which applies to all the properties on Highway 29 to underground overhead utilities. What we've learned is that this is the difference between theory and practice. So what we found in practice is it's not easy to underground these utilities because it's kind of like a knit sweater. If you pull the line on the utilities, it ripples on to all the others. And so if your overhead utilities on your property, say take Home to Suites, has 2 poles, if you take them down, the engineers require the wires that are underground to be connected to an overhead pole to continue on to the rest of the line. So we find that sometimes you take down 2 poles, but you got to put 2 poles back up to continue it. So it's become a more complicated issue than what we thought at the beginning, and we've sort of learned the hard way. What we've done in lieu of that, where it's infeasible, some projects have done it, and you see them around here. Napa Cove, for example, undergrounded utilities. So where it does happen, it's wonderful. But there are circumstances, and Home to Suites has a further complication where their pole has wires that go across the highway and continue. So we found that it's become complicated, and I'm so happy that our Public Works Director can tell you where we go from here. Is that fair? Is that fair? Is that a fair segue? we can talk about it, yeah. We're in it together, so I'm not totally dishing.
Okay. Just to follow up, this is Eric Almond-Smithies, Public Works Director. As to follow up with what Brent said, we've actually had a couple of conversations with our PG&E liaisons, with City Manager Jason Hawley and Brent Cooper in the room, discussing a long-term vision from American Canyon Road to Napa Junction or further, because we have also the channelization project. It's a bigger topic than from, project to project, and it's complicated. Sometimes they ask for another additional pole. We had the same issue with Oat Hill. We couldn't just underground by the courtyard because of the extension of services on Hess Road, for example. You're going up and then you have a crossway. So it's a bigger conversation that we're having with PG&E. They're still talking about maybe funding with their 10,000 miles a year discussion, and so there's talks in progress, but whether that comes into action, that's remains to be seen. But we still have the bigger project of Highway 29, the channelization, and needing to underground those lines as part of that project and getting the Class 1s put in on either side of the highway. So we're definitely in talks with PG&E and bringing in our other stakeholder partners on it.
As for home to suites, they're not completely off the hook. They, along with other applicants where there have been some technical complications with their limited frontage, they are contributing towards a fund that we can accumulate that can help get an efficient segment undergrounded. Is that fair to say? So we are mindful to enable undergrounding where it's feasible. That would be Napa Cove. The Hampton Inn Hotel had only one pole, and that pole can be removed because they can take service off of Donaldson Way. So we're looking for places where it's feasible and practical to do it. But in some cases, it's not practical or feasible, and in which case they've contributed funds that would go towards a larger pool to help underground them where it is practical.
Yeah, that's unsatisfying. Listen, we did the Broadway District Specific Plan. We're trying to hold feet to the fire to this, and now we're going to have a hotel with a bunch of wires that are kind of all over the place. When we approved this project, they said that they could take out 7, and it's going to look great. And they found a way to be creative on that, and that they were going to take those down. And now they're going to occupy that place, and those poles are going to be there for another 15 to 20 years. Napa Cove did it. We saw how great the highway looks. If we need to revisit, it's not a policy that is actually the council ever voted on. And if we're going to continue to do this, we need to revisit that policy and not just put it in some sort of mitigation bank that we can bank on later, but actually really affect change. This was a key thing in the Broadway District Specific Plan that was to help incrementally improve that highway.
It's a great
And
point.
I've said this before. We could put a man on the moon. We should be able to take down some power lines, right? We're launching stuff all the time. I'm getting like satellite stuff on my phone in the middle of nowhere now. There's got to be a way to do this more quickly. I'm just very upset that we're not holding developers to, which is basically the front of our city.
It's a great set of questions, Councilmember Morrow. We don't have the conditions of approval in front of us, and we're really prepared to talk about this particular item tonight. We will go back, look at the conditions of approval, and understand how they're going to be implemented and report back to the council.
Yeah, it's part of their conditions of approval.
Yeah, we'll go look at them.
Thank you. Councilmember Lamartina.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Cooper. Question for you. As a resident, if I wanted to put some wood siding on the front of my house, maybe a deck in front, posts on my deck, and extend my fence, I complete the application, and about how long would it take to get approvals, and what if I get stuck along the way? Can I make an appointment and see someone face to face?
The plan, we have plan check standards adopted with our contract with BPR. It's 3 to 5 working days, depending upon the significance of the project. So, which is, if you compare with other cities, is pretty fast. If people get stuck, our staff is available to talk on the telephone. If it's a more complicated thing that might, maybe not the example you give, but a more complicated project, we have a weekly standing meeting with multi-departments, so applicants can come and they can meet everybody who's involved in reviewing their project, and we can talk through issues that way. But our staff is available, phone, email, person, maybe less so in person because it's always hard to know if someone is right there and available, but we're available. And if all else fails, give me a call.
Thank you. And one more question. If I get, say I get stuck on the online application, then what? Just,
we have a permit text that can help
Okay.
walk someone through the process.
Great, thank you.
Yes, I thank you for the report, and I want to revisit the overhead power thing a little bit, because I do think, as a council, we may want to rethink that a little bit, particularly along the 29 corridor. A, because of the bizarre technical problems that you've talked about. B, I don't know, but I would guess that if we had the money to say, okay, we're going to start from American Canyon and go north and put everything underground, the cost per pole would probably be less because it's one big project. And so that leads me to C, it may be in our best interest to literally say we just have an in lieu. If you can demonstrate how you can reduce the poles and all that, it's one thing. If it's not practical, it might be more sensible to contribute to a fund. And the reason for that is because the 29 multimodal project that we're doing the environmental review for, and we have money for design and all that, in talking to the MVTA executive director, she's indicated grant funds are more likely for what I will say the parallel, the 29 corridor, the bike paths, sidewalks, undergrounding utilities, landscaping, is more likely to show up than the intersection improvements. And to the extent that we can get a pot of money towards overhead that we can then use to leverage, we may be able to knock out everything in a more economical way and sooner than you might think. So I just think it may be worth it to come back and talk to the council about how do we approach undergrounding overhead power lines, especially along the 29 corridor. I appreciate Councilmember Oro's concerns about this was a big deal and we need to do it, but I also think that we need to be cost effective and knock them all out at one time and save a few bucks. And so I just think it's worth a discussion that at a policy level. Thank you.
Councilmember Cruz.
Brent, thank you for the update for the building permits and so forth. Going back to Oat Hill Apartments, I noted that you changed from owners from Russell Square to Jackson Square since the last time I was there from the Planning Commission. And I do remember during that time, the builder, they're making a lot of design changes as far as the banter, the paint, and so forth and so on. And you did mention that there was design changes upcoming. I'm curious, is it a lot more changes from the last time, or is it talk about changes from the newer apartment building that's going to go above that, or can you talk about that at all?
Oh, well, thank you, Councilmember Cruz. The changes really have been accomplished. So what you see being built up there is what you get. What is a little different with the upper tier is they modified their roof pitch to be it's a little bit flatter, which enabled them to have the third floor ceiling taller. So it's an almost imperceptible change from that perspective, but it gives a much better experience for people on the third floor on the upper tier. But the changes that, well, I think when you're on the Planning Commission, I think that's run its course now, and they had their sign program approved by the Planning Commission last week. So we're kind of seeing the finishing parts and looking forward to landscaping. That'll ultimately make a great change to it. And then the roads being finished and the utilities going in, and Teresa now are in aid of servicing this project. And a pump station to help with the water flow, and it's a complicated project, a lot of work to get done. So they're getting through it.
Great, thank you, Brent.
Typically, we don't open this up for public comment, so this is not the thing where we're going to have public comment. This is a staff report for us. So, correct, but there's a staff report. You can ask me later. Yeah. So thank you, Brett. We
Okay,
appreciate
you're welcome.
you.
My
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah. And do we have any other staff reports?
No, Mayor.
No other staff reports. So from there, thank you again, Brent. We'll move on to our city council comments and committee reports, starting with Vice Mayor Joseph.
Well, I am finally getting back into the routine of submitting it, so I've got that. I do want to highlight this Saturday, a couple of big deals going on, the Hispanic Heritage Event from 2 to 8 and from 5 to 10 evening at the Ruins. So be ready to party this weekend.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Oral?
Yeah, this afternoon I attended Napa Valley Tourism Corporation meeting. This is part of a long process of, was really to discuss the bylaws and the agreement between the Napa Valley Tourism Corporation, which is the governing body that sort of collects taxes from the TOT and transfers it to a hired agency, which is Visit Napa Valley, which is a board of a bunch of hotels. Lots of details in there about how those two entities work together. I don't think there's anything too consequential for this group, but we're close to getting an agreement which will align with the county agreement between NVTC and Napa County and down to Visit Napa Valley, all supporting both our local Chamber of Commerce welcome centers as well as overall tourism in American Canyon and the County of Napa.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Lamartina?
No committee reports, but I did attend the Labor Day Union celebration. It was a great turnout. Councilmember Joseph and I went, and I was happy to see a lot of local people there, Board of Supervisors, and yeah, it was a great time.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilmember Cruz?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So last week I attended my first lobby day at the Capitol. Talked about the Senate bills and Assembly bills and had an opportunity to meet with our senator, our division, same with the Aguiar Curry, Majority Leader, Assembly Leader. So that was a very nice experience to represent Napa County. Also attended SHIPS Act that was presented by Congressman John Garamendi at Maritime Academy in Vallejo. It was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. Was able to collaborate with some of the officials of Vallejo, so it was a very productive week last week. And yes, the two events that Vice Mayor Joseph mentioned, I will be in attendance, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have all my committee reports on the attachment for the agenda this evening, but the one thing I didn't have on there was just welcoming our new city attorney for her first full-fledged city council meeting, so welcome. You've given me a couple of good nods and told me when to shut up, so I appreciate you. I appreciate you wholeheartedly. Moving on to our future agenda items, if any. Seeing none, then we have concluded our business this evening. We are adjourned. Good night, American Canyon.